Welcome to aminacademy.com. In engineering thermodynamics, let us discuss about steam tables. Steam table is very important to steam users in industries and will help you to find various properties of steam at any given particular situations. Steam table are defined as the thermodynamic data that contain the properties of water or steam. These data are commonly used by engineers. It's normally used to obtain the following properties using steam pressure for saturated steam temperature and saturated temperature for saturated steam pressure. Vice versa I can find. It's also widely used for a particular enthalpy and volume. Property, the tables list the properties of that is steam tables list the properties from saturated water to steam. This is because water is the medium that can be liquid or gas at saturation point. The saturated water in the steam property table is referred by subscript F, that is for water. Saturated water subscript is F, and the saturated steam in the steam property table is referred as subscript G. There are many properties which can get from steam table, like steam temperature, heat of saturated liquid, latent heat of steam, total heat of steam, and specific volume, etc. we can find in a single table. How to read a steam table? Please refer the below nomenclatures which you find in steam tables. Pressure of the steam or water. T is saturated point of steam and water, that is temperature of saturated point. Vg is specific volume of saturated steam. Vf specific volume of saturated water. HF equal to specific enthalpy of saturated water. HFG is latent of evaporation, latent heat of evaporation. Hg equal to specific enthalpy of saturated steam. Now, tables are different types. First one, saturated steam table. In saturated steam tables, the temperature and the pressure of the saturated steams are mutually dependent. When one of them is given, the other is determined. These tables usually include other related values such as specific enthalpy and specific volume. Since saturated steam temperature and pressure are directly related to each other, we can use two different formats are available, that is pressure based and temperature based, two types of steam table. That is, steam table is some book form, and some pages it's given pressure based, something is temperature based. That means if pressure is given, other things we can find, and temperature based means if temperature is given, other items can be found, that is pressure, enthalpy, like. There are mainly two types of different system of pressure measurement, which absolute pressure and sealed gauge pressure. The simplest way to explain the difference between the two is that absolute pressure uses the absolute zero as its 0 point, while gauge pressure uses atmospheric pressure as its 0 point. Due to the varying atmospheric pressure, gauge pressure measurement is not precise, while absolute pressure is always definite. Next one, superheated steam table. If we further heated saturated steam after its boiling point at given constant pressure, then it will converted to superheated steam. The additional heat and degrees of temperature are applied to steam above saturated point is known as degree of superheat. Now we will discuss further about saturated steam tables. A saturated steam table is an indispensable tool for any engineer working with steam. It's typically used to determine the saturated steam temperature from steam pressure or the opposite, that is pressure from saturated steam temperature. In addition to pressure and temperature, these tables usually include other related values such as specific enthalpy H and specific volume also we can find in particular point. Now look at this, for example, some pages in steam table. Here this is pressure based saturated steam table. Here pressure is given in absolute, that is kPa, kilopascal, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's given. For that particular pressure, we can find the temperature of the saturated steam, and here the specific volume also we can find Vf and Vg. Vf is for water, specific volume of water, and specific Vg and Vf we can find by using this table, as well as specific enthalpy also we can find Hf, Hg and Hfg, both all together we can find. This very useful and quick. Here there is some continuously pressure is given, but here some stoppage is there for precise. To pressure we can find this. Now look at P is a pressure, T is saturated point of steam, Vf equals specific volume of saturated water, Vg equals specific volume of saturated steam, Hf equal to specific enthalpy of saturated water, Hfg is latent heat of evaporation, and Hg equal to specific enthalpy of saturated steam. These are given here. This actually the steam table is very useful for engineers who is using steam to operate boilers, turbine, like. For heating process, using steam generally use the latent heat of evaporation to heat the product. As seen in the table, this latent heat of evaporation is greatest at lower pressure. As saturated steam pressure rises, the latent heat of evaporation gradually decreases until it reaches zero at supercritical pressure. Here, pressure based saturated steam table. Here, first here pressure is given, and from that temperature we can find specific volume and specific enthalpy. All together we can find in particular page. Different units, gauge pressure and absolute pressure. Saturated steam tables can also use two different types of pressure, absolute pressure and gauge pressure. Absolute pressure is 0 referred against the perfect vacuum. Gauge pressure is 0 referred against the atmospheric pressure. That is 101.3 kilopascal or 14.7 psi. Saturated steam table using absolute pressure. Here pressure is given, temperature, specific volume, specific enthalpy, all together we can read. Once you use to practice the steam table, it's familiar to you. Gauge pressure was created because it is often easier to reference measured pressure against the pressure we normally experience. Steam tables based on gauge pressure indicate atmospheric pressure as 0. So converting gauge units to absolute units. Suppose in steam pressure kPa absolute is equal to steam pressure kPa at gauge plus 1.10, 1.3 kPa. We have to add this amount to gauge pressure. We have to add, it gives steam pressure, total steam pressure we can find it. For imperial units, steam pressure PSI absolute equal to steam pressure gauge PSI gauge plus 14.7 PSI. We have to add it. Problem can easily occur when absolute pressure is mistaken for gauge pressure, vice versa. So it is always extremely important to pay Close attention to the pressure units used in the table. So before using the table, you have to verify which units is used. That is, which type of pressure, gauge pressure or steam pressure. You have to find it first. Superheated steam table. Values related to superheated steam cannot be obtained through a regular saturated steam table, but rather require the use of a superheated steam table. This is because of the temperature of superheated steam, unlike saturated steam, can vary considerably for a same pressure. That means, suppose we are using superheated steam, then particular super page you have to use, that is superheated steam table, you have to use for calculating steam, means calculating about the steam volume, pressure, temperature and things. Got here? For superheated steam table, now pressure kPa, saturation temperature given this area, and this side is volume, enthalpy, entropy is given. This way also we can calculate against temperatures. The above superheated steam table contains data about specific volume Vg and specific enthalpy Hg and specific heat Hg at typical values of pressure and temperature. So far we discussed about the steam table and how to read and its different type. We have done. Please subscribe our YouTube channel.